Pop singer David is facing first.
So heads up, this is going to be intense because these are updates to Celeste Rivas Hernandez's cause of death, which before we knew that she had died due to I think the prosecutor had said the use of a sharp instrument. But now the coroner's report was released, and it was released today by the County of Los Angeles Department of Medical Examiner. It's a 26-page report, and it is so vicious. Like, already this was a heinous crime that's at the root here of this case, but the details that keep coming out are it's just more horrifying than the next. And her family finally made a public statement. I'm going to start off with what they said. So they released a public statement and said, "We'd like to thank the Los Angeles Police Department and the District Attorney's Office for their hard work. We would also like to thank the people of Lake Elsinore for all their support. Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste." And they shared this photo of her. This photo of her where she very much looks like a child, because she was a child. She was a child. All right. And then the coroner's report. So the office said that the body had 2 penetrating wounds of the torso, one to the right abdomen that punctured the liver, and one to the left chest, and dismemberment of the upper and lower extremities. The injuries were caused with objects. Examiners said they also found multiple skin defects, and that when they examined the body, it had undergone severe post-mortem changes. Eventually, the report said the body was identified through dental radiograph comparison. The report listed the date and place of injury as unknown. The cause and manner of death were determined on December 9th, 2025. During the months-long investigation into Celeste's death, the police and medical examiner's office apparently clashed over whether the ME's report should be released. At the request of the police and over the objections of the chief medical examiner, a judge placed a security hold on the case that prevented the report's release. The police said the hold was necessary to ensure that its detectives learned critical information about Celeste's death before the news media and the public did. At David Burke's arraignment on Monday, a judge ordered the release of the ME's report. "After several months, I'm grateful this information can now be released not only to the public, but to the grieving family enduring loss," said the chief medical examiner, Dr. Ode Okpo. "It is unfathomable that they have had to wait this long to learn what happened to their daughter." Some elements of the report were redacted, but the release did include an investigator's observation that the dismembered body had been found inside a large black zippered body bag with handles. At Monday's court proceeding, his lawyers pushed for a preliminary hearing, we already talked about that, to be held soon, and urged prosecutors to turn over documents, including the ME's report. That led the judge to order the report's release. An initial status hearing in the case is scheduled for Thursday. So one of the charges is he's been charged with, I believe, mutilation of a corpse, because this post-mortem injuries, and I think specifically her pinky, where she had a tattoo, and he has the same tattoo, that was removed. Her body was found in an advanced state of decomp. Even the left ring and pinky fingers appear to have been mutilated. Where her body was dismembered, the report says multiple fragments of blue plastic material are found embedded in the cut surfaces. That's possibly from fragments of, say, a plastic device, a knife, or something, said Barry Fisher, the former director of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Crime Lab. The report also shows that there were presumptive positives for benzodiazepines and methamphetamine and MDMA in her system. The report does not include evidence connecting David to her death, but prosecutors who charged David with murder, mutilation of remains, and continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14 on Monday say they have a strong case through forensic and digital evidence. What makes us confident is the totality of the evidence, said DA Nathan Hochman. David pleaded not guilty. His attorneys say they'll defend his innocence. He remains in custody on no bail. When the time comes for the case to go to a jury, the medical examiner's report is one of the pieces of the puzzle that the jurors will be considering. Well, all this information in this particular instance is going to be important for the jury to hear. They're going to want to know the particulars about what happened. And I have to say, the particulars are so gruesome. It's so heinous that I can imagine when all of this is laid out in court, it's going to be incredibly difficult for this jury to hear. And because David is the prime suspect, and according to the DA's office, they have a lot of forensic evidence tying him to this. It's something that will produce a very emotional response in the jury as they are hearing what happened to this child. And I just keep thinking about, if a jury is to convict, the specifics of how someone was killed will play a huge role in what charges to go with. Exactly. I just keep thinking about, too, the motivation being, according to the prosecutors, that he was worried about his career. And it is so, it's so shocking. It's so shocking to think about that this man looked at his situation and came to the conclusion that the best option here was to murder this child that he had abused, and not just murder her, but in a very horrifying way. And then what he did to her body afterwards, the mutilation, it's all of these elements in totality that paint a very, very sick picture. And even if he had been canceled after she came forward, the idea that murder is better than cancellation is just sickening. I know. And then he just moved on. Absolutely no regard for what a heinous act it was, and put out his album, went on tour, did a music video.
First-degree murder charges in connection with the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Yesterday, David Anthony Burke appeared in court for the first time, pleading not guilty. Hernandez's dismembered body was found in the truck.
He did a concert the day after they found her, too. Yes. And that is all going to be heard by the jury. The jury is going to hear all of this. And I just feel like this is so damning. It's so damning. And the details are so horrific that I don't think that this outcome here is going to be, I don't think this is going to be anything less than life in prison, it should be.
Of Burke's abandoned car last September. Now, prosecutors say they're confident they can prove he killed the 14-year-old girl. But his attorneys say evidence will show he didn't. ABC's Trevor Alt has the latest.
Harrowing new accusations against popular singer David, now charged with first-degree murder and sex crimes in the death of a 14-year-old girl.
A parent's nightmare is a situation where your daughter goes out one night and never comes back.
The LA District Attorney says the 21-year-old, whose real name is David Burke, had a months-long sexual relationship with that young girl, Celeste Rivas. Investigators believe he killed her after being concerned either Rivas or a third party would report it, and he wanted to protect his status as a rising.
When she was originally reported missing, weren't TikTok internet checked as like, it's David? Yes, because there was online evidence that at the very least connected, like had Celeste and David together. The Twitch VODs, the text messages, people who had been fans of his or in this Discord server that were like, oh, David has been dating this girl. Like there was just no other option
Star.
as to who it would have been.
Investigators say last year, April 23rd, Celeste Rivas went to David's house in the Hollywood Hills, and that was the last time she was.
I say dated because that's how people were phrasing it. But of course, he was abusing her. He was groomed and raped this girl.
Seen alive. According to
For
the charging
two
documents, he was
years, at
allegedly
least.
lying in wait to kill her and used a sharp instrument as a deadly weapon.
On September 8, 2025, Ms. Rivas's dismembered and badly decomposed body was discovered in the front trunk of Mr. Burke's impounded Tesla.
Prosecutors allege in May 2025, David mutilated the body, and the decomposition made the investigation into her cause of death especially difficult.
What makes you confident you can prove these allegations?
The totality of the evidence, we believe we can prove each and every one of these three charges and the special circumstances and the special allegation beyond a reasonable doubt.
And Diane, David's attorney claims the real evidence in this case will show he did not murder Celeste.
David has been banned from Twitch after being arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Wow. At least we know what the line is now. Oh, my God. Wow. Well, thanks, Twitch. Great job. Thank you so much. Yeah, we found the line. Uh-huh. Yep. But don't say cracker. And be careful how you talk about Zionism. But otherwise, yeah, at least he didn't make fun of Sabra because he would have been banned right away. Suffering soul, thank you for the 32 months.
Celeste Rivas and was not the cause of her death. But if convicted, David could face life in prison without parole or even potentially the death penalty. Diane?
Trevor Alt, thank you. And ABC News legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer is here for more. Hi, Brian. So the DA is adamant they can prove Burke.
I got banned from a channel for saying jihad the other day, and the mod said Twitch has it on the naughty list.
Murdered Celeste Rivas Hernandez. What do these charges of first-degree murder and sex crimes tell you about the potential evidence they have?
Good morning, Diane. I'm really focusing on these murder in the first degree charges because there are three separate special circumstances. One, that David is alleged to have been lying in wait. Two, that he did this for financial gains. And three, that he did this to silence a witness. And when you put those three together as a narrative and you heard the presser, what they're arguing here is that because of the relationship that David had, I believe he was 20 or 19 at the time, in which Celeste was alive when she was then 14, he's with a minor. And the allegations are that David committed this crime not only to hide the fact that he was having this relationship, that's that witness part, but also to save his career, because the obvious assumption is if this was public, he would have lost everything. That's that financial gain part. And then lying in wait is the one really intriguing to me, because that tells me the prosecution has some level of information to say that David somehow lured Celeste into an area, waited, and then sprung some sort of trap on her, causing her to be murdered. That's very intriguing to me to see what they have, especially after this very long investigation.
Brian, the motive part of that.
Lying in wait is essentially premeditated. So it goes along with a first-degree murder charge. So rather than he killed her in the heat of a moment, that there was no planning to it, that there was no premeditation, this is how this is a first-degree murder charge where they've attached this lying in wait, special circumstances, because assumedly they have evidence for that, and that is proof of him planning, him having intent, this being premeditated.
They're alleging that he killed Celeste because she was threatening his lucrative music career.
And then the financial gain comes from him thinking his career would be at risk if she came forward. So his album, which he was about to drop, his tour, which he was about to go on, all of that is money. So that's all the financial gain.
How difficult do you think that part will be to prove? And what happens if they can't?
Yeah. So I'll kind of answer in backwards somewhat, Diane. If they can't prove it, then that type of special circumstance murder gets dismissed. But there are still the witness aspect and the lying in wait. So they could still succeed, them being the prosecution in what they're trying to do. But if they can't show a financial gain, if they can't show some sort of digital forensics, whether it be a text message or a communication between either David and Celeste or David and another person who is familiar with his accounting and his banking or whatever, something to show his intent, they won't be able to prove that. So I imagine there's going to be a cooperating witness, some sort of digital forensics, something to play out that narrative for the jury.
Brian, an autopsy is often key in a murder case. In this case, this body was very decomposed by the time it was found. So is it still going to play as big of a role?
I think it will play a very big role, Diane. And the prosecutor, D.A. Hawkins, said he's going to actually try to move to get that autopsy report released. But what we see, I think, could tell us a lot about this case. Don't forget
that I haven't seen an affirmative, but it seems like what the lawyers have said, they have the Tesla cameras, they have 4 terabytes. No, they said they have 40 terabytes of evidence. If they have them on Tesla dash cam, literally moving the body, it's game over. Yeah, maybe they have messages too of him asking her to meet him somewhere, something that points to him planning to kill her.
Celeste Rivas' body was found on September 8th of last year in LA. Her body was presumably there for days, if not weeks. And if we recall, in LA, they had record high heats in August. I think even just a few days before her body was found, it was in the triple digits in temperature. Inside of a trunk, inside 2 different plastic bags, her body would be heavily decomposed. But if they can find anything in terms of toxicology or any kind of injuries on the bone fragments that were still found, and then have some sort of corroboration with a witness, like someone close to David who said, yes, he did X, Y, and Z, that information, that corroboration could be very damning for David's case.
Brian, the DA says they could seek the
I just keep thinking too about the drugs in her system, and potentially they have something that shows he gave her those, which then made her easier to target because she had benzos, methamphetamine, MDMA in her system.
death penalty, but they'll determine that later. What goes into that decision, and why not make it now?
Yeah, so the fact that we have these special circumstances along with the murder charges, that lying in wait, the financial gain, the going after a witness, that allows them to upgrade a murder from life in prison without parole to the death.
He was publicly admitting he loved Gore on his Discord server. They probably, look, I know the songs, the lyrics, we've talked about all that. That's not forensic evidence. They are, I'm assuming, which is why it took 7 months, they're saying, to charge him with first-degree murder and all the other charges. They have forensic evidence that ties him to this murder.
Death penalty. And what goes into this is who the victim is. Are they seriously vulnerable? A 14-year-old girl, I think, would fall into that category. Who is the defendant? What is his record? What is the heinousness of the crime? Dismemberment of a body, talking to the victim's family, who I'm assuming would want the harshest of punishment. Having that conversation and evaluating the case is what goes into this, and they'll determine, not today, because they like to take their time and kind of dot their I's and cross their T's, but sometime later on in the days and weeks and potentially months, as to whether or not they seek the death penalty against David.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, always great to have your analysis. Thank you.
And learn how to use, so basically nobody was using it. It was less than 2%.
Um, um, this is where I'm getting this reporting in ABC, the presumptive positives for benzodiazepines, methamphetamine, and MDMA in her system. The first round of lab tests showed there may have been traces of those drugs, with more detailed follow-up tests ruled it out. The only thing that was found were traces of ethanol. Apparently, ethanol may have been produced as a result of decomp. Where did you get that? Crazy they waited so long. I guess they weren't worried about him fleeing the country or something. Well, didn't David go to Austin? Former medical examiner interviewed by Jesse on Law and Crime Network. Did he like cite the actual report? Okay, I'm trying to remember. I swear he did leave LA this is back in September after Celeste's body was found in the Tesla. Well, because he was on his fucking tour. He went to Houston for a period. His parents live in Houston. He was staying with them for a time. Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Breaking news: the autopsy.
All right.
Report through this. It is gruesome. Bring on a special guest. I'm not going to do training injuries caused by objects. The order initiated tragic loss of life.
Obscured initially, but I think what the chief medical examiner in LA is saying is that they had this information, they wanted to release this information, and they were thwarted in doing so.
And when you hear, I'm reading from it, right? So the date of the injury, they say, is unknown. The place of the injury is unknown. Pronounced date, time, September 8th, 2025, 11 a.m. Date of examination, September 10th, 2025. And it was completed, right? So December 9th, 2025. Is that time span typical?
I think from September to December, that's reasonable because they're awaiting certain specialty ancillary tests, such as toxicologic examination.
It was a Tesla rented to him.
And it's much harder to do on
a 20 minutes or maybe a bit. Try skipping to 18 minutes. All right, let me see.
And see, there wasn't anything seen on the inner lining of the uterus that would be seen in pregnancy. The external genitalia, the description is of decomposed tissue. So whether there was forceful penetration there, because of the advanced state of the decomposition, it wouldn't be seen.
I just want to go back to the skin defects. This is a part that we didn't talk about. Or maybe we did. I just need to know if this provides any more information. Skin defect, 3/4 inch. Entrance involving the right abdomen, 21 inches below the top of the head. 1 inch right of midline is a 3/4 inch length penetrating wound with smooth edges. The wound is orientated in the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock directions. Path. The wound track sequentially perforates the skin and soft tissue of the right abdomen and the liver. The wound track has an approximately depth of 1.5 inches front to back. The skin defect involved.
Is this safe for stream? Well, considering that Twitch just banned David from Twitch. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not showing anything TOS.
The lateral left lower chest, 15 inches below the top of the head. 6 inches left of midline is a 9/16 inch penetrating wound with smooth edges. Path. The wound track sequentially perforates the skin and soft tissue of the lateral left lower chest, left intercostal space, and enters the left chest cavity. The wound track has a depth of at least 2 inches left to right. The adjacent ribs show disruption of the cortical bone. Is this anything that we haven't talked about?
I mean, those are the serious fatal wounds that are described by the medical examiner. As I said, going into the body cavity and hitting the liver, which would bleed extensively.
When they found her body, she was 71 pounds. She was so small.
And then hitting the pleural cavity on the left, causing air and blood to fill up that space. Again, seeing the blood and seeing the air is not possible this many days of decomposition, but the wounds are there and they mark the track of the penetrating weapon. The fact that there's injury on the ribs themselves might be analyzed for a specific weapon as well. The markings on the ribs.
TMZ reported this. It, I believe, is to be in here as well, the toxicology findings, right? So it says there was I believe, a presumptive positive for methamphetamine and MDMA, but then apparently there was another screening that says meth was inconclusive, MDMA was not detected, that Celeste may have had alcohol in her system, didn't contribute to her death. I think we touched upon that before.
Right.
What, if you're reading the same thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but what does that tell you?
Well, just referring to the toxicology screening, you can screen for drugs and there can be interfering substances that might look like it's positive for a drug. And then when you do the in-depth analysis to confirm if that's present or not present, that's the more definitive test. So the not detected results after the screening is more relevant, that she didn't have that in her system. The alcohol, you can form alcohol, ethanol, after death in the decomposition process. And so having some there in a decomposed body is not indicative of imbibing the alcohol.
And just one more thing I want to touch upon. This is towards the end, just goes into more of the report, how when her body was found, she was...
We cover a lot of horrific crimes here, but this has to be the most terrifying. She was literally a kid, man. Yeah, and I think one factor here that makes it feel like, I don't know what word to use, is that she was on Twitch streams, you know, that he had her on stream, and she had said some things about kind of likening him to Epstein. I don't know. I think it's just knowing that she was here, that there was a Discord server, that this was public, that there were clips, that people knew that she was with David, that he was, even if they weren't using the proper terminology, that he was abusing this child. So I think, I think it being close to home that way, that David started in the content world, you know, and had her as part of his content.
Was wearing a tube top, underwear, leggings, and socks. I observed multiple holes in the front and back of the tube top. She was missing both arms above the elbows and both legs above the knees. The decedent was in an advanced state of decomposition demonstrated by foul odor, discoloration, liquefaction, insect activity, partial skeletonization, and skin slippage. Goes on at another point. She was dismembered and was inside a black body bag and black trash bag. We've known some of this before, but it's just so difficult to hear. Final thoughts on this and anything that we're missing from the report that stood out to you?
I mean, I think the medical examiner did a
And it's like, this is what we don't want. This is what we're trying to fight against being the outcome. That now we're talking about all this because she was brutally murdered, when there was so much abuse and horrifying circumstances that she was in prior to her death. And I just hate the after the fact type of discussions, that it's like nobody stepped in, at least that we're aware of, nobody with the ability, you know, with influence to save this girl, to protect her. I mean, I know her parents had reported her I think her brother had gone to the cops. But I don't know. It's like there's so many people who did nothing to help this girl. And now we're all talking.
The clothing with the wounds on the body is a very important part of analyzing, the penetrating wounds. So some of those additional injuries in the clothing may shed some light on the marks that can't.
None of this happened in one day, right? The crime here is not just that this child was murdered. It's that she had been abused for a few years, at least specifically by David. I don't know prior to when he got his grasp on her. Wonder if there will be charges for the people around them that knew. I don't even know what you could charge them for. Yeah, I mean, it seems as if they have probably witness corroboration. Maybe they struck some deals. Maybe there are deals to come for, and maybe there are additional charges that will happen.
Be further identified on the body. I think determining that it's these two fatal wounds that are the primary cause of death and that it's a homicide is very important here.
Mary Jumbelik, thanks for taking the time. I know it's never easy to go through this. I know it's never easy to go through it when you're dealing with a child, but that is exactly what the situation is here. And I appreciate really coming on very quickly to break this down with me. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
And that's all we have for you right now here.
It's so fucking dehumanizing that our society allows and enables and perpetuates the abuse and rape and murder and trash bagging of a little girl. Yeah, it's like all of the failures that lead then to this conclusion where a child is dead. And a lot of times it feels like people only care once the most extreme outcome occurs, which is the loss of life. It's the same thing we talk about with issues related to stalking laws, how cops will be like, basically be like, yeah, well, until something violent happens to you, nothing we can do about it. And then you know what happens? Often something violent where women who are victims of a domestic violence situation end up dead. And then you'll see that they had gone to the cops at multiple points, that they had requested help and none was given, and that they predicted their own demise, that they said, he's going to kill me, that something violent is going to happen to me, might happen to my children, whatever the circumstances are. And it's like, man, we don't do shit to prevent this from happening. And it's then when it happens that we go, oh God, how horrible. Oh, wow. That we express our horror and outrage and disgust when it's too late. That's the thing. It's like when it's too late. When it's too late. And there are so many times that it's not too late, that it's like, somebody please. How often do we have to call out all the issues with law enforcement, with the injustice system that enables it to get to this point that then it's too late. I heard a story of a woman who stays in a tent because she's afraid her violent ex will find her if she has a real address. Many such instances. It's insane how judge-dependent abuse cases can be too once they even make it to court case, whether it be stalking, physical, sexual assault, or anything. Uh-huh. Ask any domestic violence victim or person who has a protective order about these situations. There's always a history of inaction. Yeah, I know too many people personally who have been in a situation like this. And essentially, they are left to their own devices. And then it's hard if the person that they are trying to get protection from has more resources, has more power. Police don't prevent crimes, they react to crimes. And then often that reaction is still, well, nothing that we can do. All right. Those are the updates that I have there. And like I said, it's like every detail is just worse than the last. I mean, it's all just so fucking horrible. The manager confirms he knew about the abuse, but didn't feel like it was his responsibility to call the police. The general manager of Mogul Vision, David's record label, who appeared before the grand jury for the last 2 days regarding the death of Celeste Rivas, was way more than a record exec. He was involved in David's day-to-day life. Robert Morgenroth is someone the grand jury prosecutor is intensely interested in. As we reported, we overheard him say in the courtroom hallway that the prosecutor hammered him on why he didn't call the police. We don't know the context, but it's clear it involved David because he's a suspect in David's death. Morgenroth is way more than a GM. He was also David's day-to-day manager. Turns out there were 2 managers. The other is Josh Marshall, who actually founded Mogul Vision, and along with Morgenroth, managed the singer's career. You may remember Marshall. He's the one who signed the lease on the house that David was living in. The home police searched shortly after Celeste's body was discovered in David's Tesla. Law enforcement sources say the house is an important piece of the puzzle, which the LAPD believes implicates David in Celeste's death, which police believe is a murder. Morgenroth is also the president of Zara Brothers Travel, which is David's tour company. TMZ broke the story. Morgenroth walked out of the grand jury courtroom Monday and downloaded his lawyer in a voice loud enough for people in the hallway to hear. Morgenroth, referring to the prosecutor in the grand jury room, said she was very pushy on why I didn't call the police. He went on to say, I said I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour. There's another interesting twist. Late Tuesday afternoon, the prosecutor, Beth Silverman, went into a nearby courtroom along with Morgenroth and his lawyer. That courtroom is the same one where a judge was going to rule on whether to hold another witness in the Celeste Rivas grand jury in contempt. It's unclear why they went into this judge's courtroom, but it may well be the prosecutor is dissatisfied with Morgenroth's answers or lack thereof. When they went into the courtroom, the judge told a reporter to leave, so we don't know what went down there. Morgenroth was back before the grand jury Wednesday morning. And look, I know it's TMZ, but TMZ has eyes and ears everywhere. And this is something that I'm willing to believe that they did hear this piece of shit say this, because this also, it's like, of course people around David, most likely those with a big financial incentive, like this guy who's involved in multiple companies associated with David here, that they knew about Celeste. And also, we live in a society that does not prioritize the lives of girls like Celeste Rivas Hernandez. TMZ is evil, but their reporting is often quite accurate. Yeah, they are definitely, obviously a sensationalist news source that frequently displays a lack of any moral qualms. Like, they will report something when it's not appropriate to do so. I hope they also prosecute people like his manager who knew and did nothing. Yeah, so that's the question. It will be, what is the implication here? Will they serve as witnesses for the prosecution? I don't know. They probably referred to her as a problem that they wish to get rid of. Yeah, I'm sure they saw Celeste as a growing problem because she was a child. And yet David's the client. David's the one who's their moneymaker. So if David wanted her around, then she was around. But obviously, this is what we're referring to as the bigger problem here, which is that it's not just the actions of one individual, it's how that person was enabled and that nobody was stepping in who was in a position to do so. Basically, all their early reporting on this particular case it's been shown to be wrong since more info has been released in the last few days. It doesn't mean this reporting is but worth keeping in mind. Yes, I mean, I always have grain of salt with companies like TMZ, but this comes at no surprise, you know? It's like, of course.